Zoom, zoom, zoom. And vibrate. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna need this. Zoom, zoom, zoom. I recognize that guy. Cool. We're giving us like the thumbs up there,
Yep.
Nick. Good to go?
Yeah.
Terrific. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Village of Gold River Committee of the Whole meeting. We're going to be delving into the village's finances this evening. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. Any late items, Administrator Roy? Any late items, council members? Didn't think so. Approval of agenda. The agenda be adopted as presented. Who care to move it? Councilor Waymeyer, second by Councilor Pringle. Discussion. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Adoption of the minutes. Do we actually? We don't have any. I didn't see any. Thank you, Mr. Roy. Seeing none, moving on. Public statutory hearing. Seeing none, moving on. Unfinished business. Seeing none, moving on. Delegations. Seeing none, moving on. And the reason we're here. Administrative reports. 2026 5-year financial plan operating. Motion is that council receive this for our information. Who care to move it? Councillor Pringle, second Councillor Waymeyer. You can actually put your hand up there too if you want, Councillor Pickard. I can. Okay, fun stuff. Here we go. Discussion. Before we actually get into discussion, I'd like to give the minister an opportunity to speak to his report because it's a fascinating report, and I think he can probably bring some clarity to it before we get into our discussion. And Mr. Roy, I yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Worship. So the budget has been drafted based on the direction we've been receiving from council, about 8.9%. Added on this year was 3% for asset management. That's a decision point for council to determine if that's a direction we want to move at this time. But it is something we're going to should be addressing to start tackling our asset management program. So the one thing that isn't showing having an increase in this year's budget is the garbage section. I've recommending that we go 0% increase in the garbage area for the 5 years of this plan. As if you were to look at the net operations of the solid waste, it's actually in a surplus situation. So there's not a need to or a justification to increase the rates at this time. So basically red circling them for the next 5 years. The other thing I've done is remove the exempt position we're keeping in there in case of the need of having to replace me with 2 people. But what I'm recommending is that we take some of the surplus this year and put it into reserved for the needs should in the future we need to fill the position, so the funds are there. So it's not a sudden surprise to the budget that we have to all of a sudden scramble to bring in that money. Should say in June 2 years from now you need to bring in a second person, the funds are set aside. Of course, that means in the subsequent budget years that would have to be adjusted for, but it also reduces the need to budget and collect funds to fund that a position that we're not filling at this time. So basically, it's just a different method to manage the situation at this time. And also, if you think about it, if we do get the asset management going, we'll have some additional funds going to reserves. So we could, in the future, when we bring that position back on, phase in the impact by reducing slightly the transfer to the reserves to offset that, to ease the taxpayer back into bringing in the all-in cost, probably about 170,000 for that position. The other change that was done to this budget is the TCA stuff was moved into it. It was sitting in the projects area in the past. It makes no sense to have it there. I've moved it over into the operations. It's a nil impact on the bottom line because at the same time we bring in a transfer from surplus for the TCA to offset the amortization expense on an annual basis. But if on a year-to-year comparison, it'll be a bit different because last year there was none in 2025, but there will be in 2026. So that will be a transition one area that was brought to my attention today, because a question was asked, was in recreation. They said, what's this 144,000 revenue? That's actually the cost of the depreciation. That's the offsetting revenue to nil it out in the operating area. Because each of those things, depreciation are separated throughout the charts of accounts to reflect in the appropriate budget area. So the major budget areas being general government, protective services, public works, and so on. Other thing that I've mentioned in here is that we have some additional projects being targeted for the aquatic center to get done in 2026, but we're looking to use gas tax funding and applying for BC hydro grant to offset the cost. So that although there's a bump on the expense side, there's also a bump, corresponding bump on the revenue side. So again, not doing those projects wouldn't have no impact to the bottom line because it would also negate the need for the grant funding. I think those are probably the highlights at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, sir. Council members, do you have any questions you care to direct towards our CAO prior to our discussion? Wow.
Councillor Pickert, I believe I've left it so that you can unmute yourself when you need to.
Okay.
I will have questions, but I don't want to open.
No.
Nobody wants to, no one wants to ask many questions? Boy.
Oh, looks like you're good enough.
Okay, so we just wrap this meeting, move to adjourn then? Great, 7 minutes for a committee of the whole meeting. I never thought we'd see that. Okay, thank you, sir, for your presentation. It is very enlightening and helps to us to understand what the issues are. Councilors, members, anything that you want to discuss in the budget? Councilor Waymire, start us off, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'll start us off with the big question, and that is the tax rate and that asset management contribution. I think we all have an appetite of say 8.9, but that extra 3% is, you know, starting to push it up to, you know, into the teens. So what I'd like to see is keep it at that 8.9, and then have the garbage that's at 0 instead of increasing the garbage, have that increased in our taxes so that we're still at the 8.9 and we're still contributing to asset management. It won't be the $56,000 as projected here, but it would be, you know, a third of that. So at least we're taking a, you know, baby step in the right direction while keeping the public, you know, ideally happy enough with us. And I think that's, as we, you know, get all caught up in say 2028, 2029, we can start looking at the 5 plus the 3.9%. But at this point, I think I'd be much more comfortable with using that garbage to start funding the asset management contribution.
Thank you, Councilor Rimmer. Anyone else? Are we getting a doozy here? Is that what we're
No.
working up to?
No,
Councilor Briggle.
to the chair, I like that idea. I want to keep it at the 8.9% that we have pretty well promised that we were going to do. And can you just explain to me what you meant about the garbage? I'm just having a bit, sorry, I'm a bit brain farty these days.
Did you want to just,
Chair.
you wanted to do that? Did you want to do that, Mr.?
I'll ultimately defer to CAO Roy, but basically right now our garbage is set for 0, whereas all the rest of the utilities are still up there at 8.9%. And so it should be 18,000-ish that we would not be increasing garbage, and could, I'm sure he's got to press some sort of buttons on an Excel form but it should be possible to still have 8.9%, just making garbage zero and general tax increase slightly more. Sorry, could I?
Did you want to elaborate on that, sir?
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet for a scenario to what
Oh,
Councillor
I was
Waymer
afraid of that. Oh, yeah, he showed that to me earlier today, so I already exposed to it.
So the column over, the first set of columns is the scenario that was presented in the budget, which comes out to about 11.9%, or at the very bottom line, because we're not increasing garbage, has a net revenue.
You guys, yeah.
Sorry, I'm on the screen right now. This is something I put together. Sorry. Just to try, describe, because I knew this was where we were headed. So without having to increase garbage, you do an 8.9% and the 3%, and then to taxes, water and sewer, it actually comes to 10.7% because we're not increasing garbage by the 8.9. What Councillor Waymeyer is suggesting is making it so that we're not doing the asset management except for up here to bring it so that the net total of all our user fees and taxes is at an increase of revenue of 8.9%. So for 2026, that would be about just over $18,000 going to asset management as opposed to the 50 some. In 2026, 19,000, 2027, then it would, the program would then initiate from the 5 and 3.9 or whatever from that point on. So doing this, it comes out to a revenue increase based on taxes and user fees of 8.9%. I got 8.1 in the next year. Could tweak the numbers, make that 8.9 if need be, but that's basically what Councillor Waymeyer is saying. So it still keeps us under at the 8.9 and under. In combined, that's water, sewer, garbage, taxes. Remember, it's just instead, all we're doing is shifting the garbage increase. Instead of doing a garbage increase, we're shifting it over to the regular, the taxes to allow the asset management program to start getting funded.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Pickard, you disappeared from my screen. I don't know if you have your hand up, but you usually
Yeah, she
do.
disappeared,
So
I'm here, yeah. I do, and
I assume that you wanted to speak to this.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Pringle, Councillor Waymeyer for your thoughts there, and thanks Administrator Roy for putting this all together. And I agree with Councillor Waymeyer's ideas. Although the asset management is a big piece, and that's kind of what the McElhaney, the open house there that we had on the OCP plan, they kind of were saying like the biggest thing they wanted to share with communities and highlight for communities is asset management. So I like that it's coming on our radar and with all our aging infrastructure, and I think it's important. But I also agree with Councillor Waymeyer that we're comfortable with a certain tax rate increase, and at the end maybe even hope to decrease it instead of ramp it up like in above 10 in double digits. So I like adding, even though the garbage is making a surplus, or shifting it around like that so we don't add it to the taxes all across the board and just have a bit of the increase in the garbage. That makes sense? And then I'm wondering if Administrator Roy, you could explain, you explained it, and can you hear? Yeah. And
Yes.
there's a little bit just of description about the plan has also removed an FTE for an exempt position with the village, with administration recommending the restriction of 170,000 of unallocated surplus to be established to offset future potential need. So that kind of just mitigating for the chance that we would need one or two more positions instead of you.
That's going to what I was talking about earlier
Yeah.
in my opening, where I said it was an exempt position we're keeping in the offset that should I need to be replaced, it could result in a second position also being needed.
Okay,
So we've been budgeting for that second exempt position, but not filling it. What
okay,
I'm recommending is not budgeting it for it anymore, but setting some funds aside to be able to pay for a year's worth should the need arise in the future. And then from that point on, the position would have to be budgeted and funded at that time.
okay. And then would we have to set aside funds or budget also for your position too, or no? Because that's already in the budget.
No, because that's already in the budget. That's correct.
Okay, okay. So this would
And
be it. If for
that-
some reason you go, then we already have your position kind of covered in budget expenses and we'd have to add this one in. Get two people for your job
Actually, 3.
or 3? Okay.
But we could also look and try and recruit a mini me,
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Roy, and
There
have
might be others
somebody
out there.
replace his skill set. You know, it'd mean we'd have to probably work a little bit, but we could still stay with exactly this staffing configuration that we have. But I think Mr. Roy is trying to prepare us in the event
Yeah.
that if he does retire, he doesn't want to work any longer, which
Mhm.
well-deserved retirement, then we would have some money there in an account that would cushion that transition to moving from a single
Yeah.
position to a double position. And my understanding is that it's not going to cost the village anything. He's removed that exempt position and he's taking money from a surplus and just reallocating it to an account so it's dedicated. So instead of being
Yeah.
amount of money that's undedicated, it would be dedicated for that purpose. And it'd just be sitting there ready to,
Mhm.
take that blow and provide that cushion for us or whoever the next council is as they transition. And that money, if it doesn't get used, if we stay with the mini me CAO and we replace Mr. Roy, if he decided to retire in the future with another person with his skill set and we don't have to hire a second or third person
Mhm.
then that money can be reassigned to something else. That's what I got with my discussion from Mr. Roy this morning. He keeps on looking at me like, when are you ever going to learn this stuff? How come I have to keep on explaining to you again? Kind of reminds me of some of my school teachers. But does that help clarify it at all for you, Councillor Pickard, or just confuse you more?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Fawson, you are up, sir. If you have any questions you'd like to address to the CAO pertaining to his report on 5-year financial plan. Wow, you're letting him off easy, huh? Okay. Well, that's not usually what I do. That's not usually what I do. Everybody had their opportunity to speak. Tell you how I feel about it. I had a conversation with the administrator this morning too, so he's familiar with my position. But the first thing is conceptually, do I accept the fact that we need to have a separate tax to finance our asset management to replenish our exhausted reserves, the reserve for water and sewer and general and for fiscal? I believe it was fiscal. Do we need that? Absolutely. Like once you get into the projects, like when we get into the project budget and you see how much money we're gonna have to spend on replacing equipment and projects and unforeseen emergencies, like having to replace a sewer treatment plant, there's no way that if you look at how much we're talking about spending in that 5-year period, we have available in those accounts. We might be able to squeeze it in with everything. If you look at, our unrestricted surpluses or restricted surpluses, all our reserves and what we have maybe in some of our other funds we could probably pull it off. But when we look at that, if you add that up, we're not even close. So do I support the concept of having a asset management tax that will be solely dedicated to replenishing our reserve funds and preparing us for expenditures that are inevitable in the future, which would be replacing equipment, projects, whatever they may be, or unexpected emergencies? Absolutely. It's just prudent. So I'm really pleased to see this in the budget. The only exception I take to this is that I also believe that it's a responsibility of council to be trustworthy and dependable. And when council goes through a process of deliberation and discussion and comes to a conclusion that 8.9 is the ceiling for our residents, that we want to tax them, then I want to honor that. So when you talk about 8.9% in the first and second year and then adding 3% on and then 5% in the last 3 years and adding 3.9% on, however you want to do that, I can support the third, fourth, and fifth, where we're at 5% for our general taxes and 3.9 for taxes that go into the amortization. But I'm not prepared to support any taxes that will go over that 8.9 threshold that we had established. I think it's critical to build that trustworthiness between the community and their elected officials. If we're going to tell them we're going to do something, we do it. And it may be tough, it may be hard, may be challenging, but you know what? If that's our position and we have a rationale for having that position, we should stick with it. So I'll support this because I think it's critical for the village. I will in the last 3 years because we stay under that 8.9 threshold. And if Mr. Roy can figure out through his the magic of financial management, how we can keep that number at 8.9 and still put money in asset management in the first 2 years, I'd also support that. But I won't support the first 2 years. And that's how I feel about that. And on the second, I want to move on to another concept here that I have here is one is when this council started off 3 years ago, one of the principles that they embraced and they recognized that was critical for the village of Gold River and something that we would have to really deal with over our 3 years was being financially responsible and trying to get a budget together that allowed us to maintain the nature of our community, the quality of life in our community, the standard of living that we kind of enjoy, the amenities that we have, without having to sacrifice a lot of that. I mean, without having to sacrifice closing our pool or shutting our arena or curling rink or our golf course or anything else that may be in there. And we tried, that was a goal that we set for ourselves. We wanted to try to get to a balanced budget. I remember looking at the budget and just Mr. Roy only had one color of pen when he was working on his budget, and it was red. It was red everywhere. It was like, it's $800,000 deficit this year and a $900,000 deficit next year or $600,000. It was just unsustainable, right? We looked at it, we knew that we were going to be bankrupt pretty soon. We were going to deplete all of our savings. But here we are on basically our last budget of our term, and we're within striking distance of balancing a 5-year financial plan where you could have 0%, basically zero over all 5 years. How do we get there? Well, a lot of, like people said, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication. If you look at it, last year, I think we talked to the administrator and his staff and people about cutting $550,000 from the operating budget. And then when he came back and he was expecting to get a pat on the back and recognition and approval, we said, I need some more. Another 150,000 came off the budget. Got us down to the point where this community is nearly at the point where it can pay for what it's spending without having to go into its savings. We have to get there. If we don't get there, then the things that we love about Gold River that make up Gold River are at risk. And I think that one of the great legacies of this council and this administration will be that at the end of our term, if we can hand a 5-year financial plan onto the next council, that's a balanced budget that maintains the quality of our community, the nature of our community, the services that they have in our community at a comparable level without having to fire people, terminate a bunch of folks, and still allow us to pay our bills without having to depend upon any extraordinary thing like heavy industry coming in. We can just take care of our own bills because we're raising enough money. That to me is going to be, I think, the greatest legacy that this council could leave for the community and for the next council going forward. And we're pretty close because when you look at it, the administrator, again, if you look at his first statement in his report, we're starting off with $218,000 off of what was projected in our last 5-year budget for 2026. In 2026, last year, we had projected a $284,879 deficit. And now that's down to $66,520. Easy striking distance to get it down to zero. I can go across the board on the 5-year financial plan, but most of the time what you'll see is that the administrator's got the deficit down significantly. What I want to see is a report from our administrator and staff showing me how I get from where we are right now with this document, where it says we're going to have a 284,879,000 deficit on 2025, and he got it down to 65,620. I'd like to see that number at zero. And I'd like to know how we get it there. Now, I've got some ideas on how to get it there, but the administrator and his staff has taken us in the last 3 years from, I think, bankruptcy to solvency, and put us on the track where this community is going to be able to be viable, standing on its own feet without having to depend upon, like what we've always waited for, an external source coming in to provide funding for us. So our administrator and his staff and our employees and community and whoever else, they've got us there. And I'm so glad to be there, because it looked pretty bleak a long time ago. When I'm hearing stories, the only way that Gold River is going to make it is if we shut down our pool, shut down our arena, shut down our curling rink, shut down our parks, shut down golf courses. And I thought, well, that's not Gold River. We need to fight for Gold River. And I think we have, because here we are today. I'm within $66,520 of getting to a balanced budget on the operating. Who would have thought that? Because I went back over budgets a long time ago where the 5-year financial plan said that we're going to be around $700,000-800,000 deficit, with facilities maybe closed. So what I'm looking for is, I see like that $66,520 as a deficit in 26, and the administrator in 27 is proposing or projecting 150,000, 151 deficit in 2027. 2028 is to 74,207. 2029, 46,359. I think what I'd like to go for is, I'd like to go for it. I'd like to see us close this out on our last year budget with a balanced budget over a 5-year projection. And I know it's going to take a little bit of work, but not much, not like what we asked for last year, but it will take a little bit of work. And I think we can participate in that if we have to, but I'm confident that if we give that back to the administrator and his staff and the employees, that they know the organization, they know the budget process, they know it better than that, and they can manipulate that so that we can get there. If they can't, they can do what we did in the first year, where we asked them to bring us the pain list. And like we said, this job isn't easy. We have to make hard decisions. They don't have to make them all. They can bring the list to us and we can make those decisions if we collectively want to get to that place where we want to have that balanced budget. That's important to me, because that's what I promised the community I'd do when I started off 3 years ago and I ran for this position. I said that we were going to try and get to the point where we were going to have a balanced budget. We were going to have manageable tax rates. We were not going to be closing all our facilities. We're not going to be dramatically changing the complexion of Gold River. We wouldn't be firing people, laying a whole pile of people off. But we're going to try and get there. And I think we're so close. Like I look at where we are, and I'm really thankful for, like I said, for our administrator and his staff and the employees and whoever else contributes to the budgeting process, because they've got us here. And I'm very grateful for that. So that's one of the things that I've talked to the administrator about. He doesn't want me to come to his office anymore for a while. I think he just wants to deal with council, because tired of hearing me. Every time he comes and brings me a $218,000 savings, I say, what about the 66,590 or whatever? How do we get there? And I know it's going to take a little bit of pain, but I have some ideas I could share, but I'm going to let the professionals deal with it. So that's something that I have on my list that I like to see when we come back together again. And yeah, those are the only two things. I can look at the budget and for a 5-year financial plan, I can live with all of it. I like it. I think it's gonna be a great plan for Gold River for the next 5 years with those two caveats. One is that I don't want to go over 8.9%. So I can't support the asset management in the first 2 years for the 3%. Not unless you work some magic but I can support it because I agree with the concept in the last 3 years. And I think we're so close to a balanced budget, and that was one of my goals. I'm not sure if collectively that was a council goal, but it's certainly one of the things I promised my constituents in the community that I would strive for. And I want to take a shot at it and see if I can get there. And this year, because this basically is, like I said, our last pretty well kick at the can, and then it's going to be a new group of people that are going to be looking at it. And man, I tell you what, if the next council that comes in, if they get to look at the budget that we leave them, if it's going to be balanced, it's going to look a hell of a lot better than the thing that we were looking at the first year that Administrator Roy brought us our 5-year financial plan, where I went, holy crap, we're in big trouble. So from there to here, guys, and I know that we're pretty close, and I just want to bring it across the finish line myself. And that means a little bit of work, but like I said, I think like I heard before, I think Administrator Roy mentioned it, but I think that is echoed by, or brought by the council said, it's hard, and it's going to be difficult, but we're up for it. I heard that, I can't remember exactly what discussion. I think there was Councillor Pickard and Councillor Boston that was having that exchange, but I do remember it resonated with me. It was like, yeah, we are up for it. We can get this done. But anyways, I'm not, like I said, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Councilor Pringle.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you, and I just would like to reiterate what you said, that we wouldn't be here without our staff,
Absolutely.
without our workers, and even the village themselves, our community, because they've really stood behind us. Yeah, we've had some people here who are upset, but we've really had some really good people to make sure what we're doing is open and honest. And I really think your idea about getting us to a balanced budget, that is what we all talked about when we ran. And I think that is something we can reach, but we can't do it on our own. I would like to hear what our workers say and our staff says. And I really don't want to bring out that piece of paper and go through line by line again, because that was very upsetting. But, you know, we have to do what we have to do. But this is really good work, and I really want to thank you for this report.
Yeah, I'm very much an advocate of going home with the person I bring to the dance. So the person that got us to where we are right now is the administrator and his staff and the employees and whoever else he employs in order to get the budget together for us. And I wouldn't presume to be able to do this on our own. I'd like to give it back to the administrator, his group with that request, and have him look at it. And he might be able to work something out that doesn't require a lot of pain, and might be able to bring that back to us. And we've achieved what I want to get to, and the community wants to get to, and I believe this council wants to get to. If he doesn't, then there's some pain decisions to be made. I'm quite prepared to make those, and to get to where we want to be. And I want to understand the implications of those decisions so he can bring us a list back like we did in the first year. I'd prefer not to see a list, but you know what? If that's what's necessary, then that's what I'm prepared to do. But I have full confidence in an administrator who demonstrated last year that he was capable of bringing that budget down significantly and also bringing it down again this year. Councilor Pringle.
Sorry, just one more thing. I just was thinking about, you know, we want to put that money away for someone coming in case we need a second or third person, but can't we just take the 66.5 out of there? And then that would be 103,480 that we put away.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of different things that we could do, but you know what? I don't want to do anything like that. I just want to leave it with the administrator and have him, because he's our professional and he knows, he's got the knowledge and the experience, and I think he can bring us some solutions that, and if he can't just, you know, get us there himself, But I'm sure I have some options too, but I don't want to do them publicly because I don't want that, because you can look at the expression on my CAO right now. If I start throwing my things out there too, it probably even change. So it'll look a little more even worse than that. Okay, Counselor Pickard.
I'm laughing over here. Thank you through the chair.
You can't
And-
see the CAO's expression though.
I know, I'm just trying to picture what it looks like. That's why I'm laughing. Thanks, Council or Mayor Lott, for your thoughts there, and we all echo those sentiments. And it's such a legacy thing to have a more balanced budget, and it's looking better and better. So thanks for recognizing that and pointing it out, and also thanks, Councillor Pringle, too, for just recognizing that it's us sitting here looking at it, doing it, and CAO kind of organizing it all together, but it takes a village, and our residents have been great, and the workers are just great, and that we're lucky to get to work for such great bosses. And I just have a question for the administrator for a second for one or two of the line items on page 14. I think it's the budget forecast by costing center, and it's the department is Public Works and Transport. And I'm just wondering if the top line of revenues, 2025 budget is 1,000, but 2026 budget is 124,290. So kind of a big change there, 123,000. And then at the bottom, kind of lower down for expenses, the Public Works Administration again was 2025 budget 83,000 and 2026 budget 216,000. So why that change of 133,000?
As I was mentioning earlier, it's the amortization, the depreciation. So
Okay.
the offsetting revenue. So that's why there's an increase on the
Okay.
revenue and on the expense
Okay.
side in administration, because that's depreciation. And that's
Okay.
how it works.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You're good, Counselor Pickard?
Yes, thank you.
Counselors, any other discussion that you care to have on this before I call for the question? We're just on receipt. Counselor Weimer.
I guess I'd like to go through what we've kind of decided, what sort of direction we're pushing staff on this particular matter. Got a lot of things kind of up in the air. So I kind of want to get the feel for the room. I think I understand that everybody's pretty happy with sticking to the 8.9 and not having the 3%. And that staff can do some garbage magic towards the asset management, which is certainly not, the 55,000, but it is something. And he's probably got other magic other than just garbage. There is, I think we're all decently inclined to, the first 2 years do that. And then 3 years from now, it's going to be like 5% plus the 3.9%. I think that's generally what I got. Also, save wherever we can, but is there anything else that we're missing or anybody opposing any of this?
Counselors, would you care to respond to Counselor Waymar's inquiry?
Concurrence.
I concur. Where did that come? That was Patch Adams, wasn't it? I concur. Yeah.
Good summary of the magic and garbage magic.
Yeah. I just never tire of listening to Counselor Waymire and his colorful expressions of things. He makes the mundane so interesting for me. Just listening to the way he expresses himself. But I agree with what Counselor Waymire said. I think the things that he summarized, I also agree. I think that this council's committed to the idea of asset management tax, and I think they're supportive of it, but not 3% in the first 2 years. But 3.9 possibly in the last 3 years. I think they believe in that what you say is what you do, and you can depend upon it and take it to the bank. And if we say we're at 8.9 is our ceiling for whatever rationale, we're going to stick with that. And then striving to see whether or not the administrator, through his magic, as Councillor Waymeyer's favorite word or adjective, is that can he find a way of getting us down to a zero balanced budget? And if he can't, and he wants somebody to make some decisions, we're there to make those decisions. And other than that, I looked at the budget and quite honestly, a lot of it's just numbers to me. It's not conceptual. I have to go and talk to the administrator and ask him what the numbers actually represented. And I think that's part of this process as we go along, but I don't want to go through line by line, but tonight I'm just not there. But if there is things that you see in there, like when you see numbers like Councillor Pickerson, and you're not quite sure what they are, then this is our opportunity to get him to turn those numbers into something that's conceptual for us so we can understand it. But overall, I'm thrilled with the efforts of our staff and what they've done and what they're presenting here to council and the community and where this puts us. And quite honest, 3 years ago, I was thinking of packing up and getting out of here because the place looked like it was done and it was going to die. And now I'm pretty optimistic about where we are. And I think we position ourselves really well, and we're ready for what I want to see is that renewal and growth. So, we couldn't be there and position ourselves as a community unless we had the contributions from our staff, because ultimately the staff and the employees and whoever else contributes to this is the people who have got us here. Got some more magic for us, Councillor Wimmer?
Not quite magic, not nearly as significant. Just really the last item on everything is the Grant and Aid Support Fund. Super glad to see that's established. I just wanted to get a little more clarification. I understand we've seeded it $50,000. Is it our intention to seed another $50,000 this year into the budget? And perhaps that's to the CAO through the chair?
Mr. Roy?
Currently, the budget does have 50,000 seated in there for each year until council says otherwise.
Thank you, Councillor Waymire. Any other discussion the council would like to have? Seeing none, call for the question on receipt. All in favor? We have received it. Can we adjourn now? Oh, nope, there's some more stuff.
One more thing.
To do with my sheet. There's still some more stuff on that agenda, right? If I can find it. Hey, I'm not that sharp tonight. I just did a lot of driving, a lot of drama today, so yeah. You're probably gonna get like 75% effort tonight. Okay, thank you. On to 8.2, reserve and supply or surplus policy. My apologies. That council direct administration to prepare the policy for an upcoming regular council meeting. Who'd care to move it? Councillor Fosson, second by Councillor Pickard. So we have you actually on the agenda. Again, CA Roy, I think we would benefit from your wisdom, sir, if you could kind of clarify what your intent was with this initiative.
Yes, Your Worship. This is basically trying to put a policy in place on what we're going to do with our reserves and surpluses, what their thresholds should be, which ones we have, how they're funded. For example, on the surpluses in the policy, I'm saying there's a minimum and an optimum level. So minimum of surpluses probably should be about 2 months of operating expenses, whereas the optimum is 6 months, half a year, which gets us to when taxes come in. So our optimum goal of a surplus would be there. Anything over that surplus, then we could assign to the reserves. Water and sewer, though, I've been treating it as self-funded, so everything goes to those respective reserves. So besides the capital, we also have a budget stabilization reserve. We do have some restricted funds that are in our chart of accounts. One of them being the legacy of 3 million, which could go to the, what I'm saying is put into the budget stabilization fund, which is for one-time projects. And with the minimum being that 3 million, we don't want to bring that fund below that 3 million. So it allows interest to be generated, funded into that there. But that would allow us in the future, say, there's some things that we do that aren't on an annual basis. They're every couple of years, 3 years. Instead of going to the taxes, we can then take it out of the budget stabilization thing and at least not have to do that jump. Or because we don't meet all our objectives in the year, we have a surplus, it helps fund that. It helps in the longer run start stabilizing your budget without having these bumps that come in on every 3 years, every 2 years, whatever cycle. So that's the purpose of the budget stabilization one. I think that's what I called it. Financial stabilization reserve, sorry. So we already have the capital works reserve, the sewer reserve, the water reserve, the municipal docks maintenance reserve, which is funded by 20% of the revenues generated by the wharf. We have a carbon fund reserve, which is basically the funding from the carbon stuff, the calculation that's done. The grant and aid support, which Councillor Waymer addressed, which in the policy I'm saying that a minimum 500,000 is with an optimum maybe 600. That's based on trying to generate $10,000 annually in interest to fund our grant and aid program based on about 1.5%. I kind of lowballed. It all depends. A couple of years ago when I first got here, interest rates were like 0.9. So
nice.
Yeah.
Unless you were actually boring.
You know, if the interest rates stay up, then that fund will generate more. It gives an opportunity potentially for more grant and aid initiatives if council today so chooses. And I guess, like I said, the Transition Legacy funds, that's the funds that we got for about $3 million back in the transition from the mill closure. It'll still be there. It was just put into that reserve. And currently, we don't put a lot of the interest back into the reserves. This policy is also saying we put the interest in there to start funding. So it develops a guideline for us to work with, and it's just a bit of understanding what we have.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Pringle.
Thank you. And I really like the Schedule A surplus and reserve summary because I went all through this. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I got here and I was like, oh, now I really understand it. So I really liked this, and it really, it solidified it in my mind. And I think too, it would really help. I don't know if it's somewhere, this document is public too, right? We can share this. I just really think it's a really good document, and it just really explains everything. So I just want to say thank you for adding that because it really solidified it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Anyone else? Repetition, repetition, repetition. That's how we learn. I think everybody's really happy. Everybody's tired. They want to go home. I know I'm tired. I want to go home. So. So any other discussion? No, call for the question. All in favor? You're looking pretty good there tonight, Mr. Roy.
Thank you.
We can rip through the rest of it. Reports for council, seeing none, move forward. Information items, none moving forward. Reports committee, move forward. Bylaws, none. Correspondence, none. New business, none. Nobody in the gallery for questions. Nobody online for questions, sir. Thank you, sir. No need to adjourn in camera. No need to rise and report on anything. Ah, my favorite item. I love this item. And I moved adjournment. The meeting will be adjourned, moved by Councillor Waymer, second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion? I'm glad there's never any discussion. Can you imagine if we had a discussion on here? I'd lose my mind. All in favor? We're done. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Thanks for coming, Joe.
See you, Nikki. Thanks, Joe. Good to see you. Good job.